Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're so excited to have you. I see everyone trickling in. It always just takes a little bit of time, so we'll wait till everyone, enough people are here with us, but we're excited to be gathering tonight. Oh, it's so fun seeing everyone join. Well, we'll just give it another couple seconds and then we'll get started. Amazing. Cool. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight at our MoxxieMade Cocktails and Conversations event on body image and self-love. I am Megan, the founder of MoxxieMade. For those of you who might not be familiar with MoxxieMade, our mission is to really encourage women to step into their most courageous, expansive lives by building community, providing holistic mentorship, and sparking soul growth. And so with every conversation that we curate, we really want to provide you all actionable wisdom to grow personally, professionally, and spiritually into the women that you feel called to be. I feel really honored to be holding space for this conversation. It's so important and one that I know I'm excited to learn from these amazing women. So I'm going to be welcoming up our speakers to join me. Hi, guys. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
Thank you. Before we get started kicking off the discussion, we always like to really, celebrate and say hello to our community. At the heart of MoxxieMade is all about connection. And I feel like with digital events, oftentimes it can be easy to forget that there are, 100 women with us tonight, all holding the intention to really get real and vulnerable about our body image and how we feel about ourselves and how to move and shift to a kinder, more loving sense of self. And so really want to reiterate that, this topic tonight is one that is triggering for some people. MoxxieMade is about cultivating a safe space that we can be vulnerable and that we can truly support one another and we can truly connect with one another. And so really want everyone to keep that in mind with tonight's discussion. And so, with everyone gathering here with us, I'd love for you guys to take a moment, go into the chat box, make sure that it's signed to everyone and tell us hello, tell us where you're joining from. This is always one of my, favorite moments of the night is going through and reading all of the messages. Are you guys able to see them at all? No? That's so weird. Huh. Oh, okay. I think it should be working now. Let me know. Okay, amazing. Thanks, guys. From New York, Seattle, love it. Connecticut, Kentucky, Arizona, Austin, Canada. We have someone from Sweden. That's super exciting. Thanks for staying up super late to be here. Massachusetts. Yeah, Anna is excited. Michigan, Denver, Argentina. Hello. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us. You guys are at the heart of MoxxieMade, and tonight is really to support all of you. So thanks for being here. Really, really exciting. On that same note, we really want to get a sense of where you're at. I'm going to be pulling up a poll that we'll be launching. And I was telling all the speakers right before this that, it's no surprise that 2020 is an intense time. I know for me, it's been 15 years since I really struggled with my eating disorder, and I'm even seeing negative thought patterns come up. And so it's really normal, I think, for that inner critic to be a little bit louder. But would love to hear from you all. Have you guys noticed an increase in feeling more critical about your body, feeling a little bit more insecure about your body over the past couple of months. I'll give everyone a few more moments to let us know. We have people from Chile and Australia as well. It's so exciting. So yeah, it seems like overwhelming response is that about 90% of us have noticed over the past couple of months kind of an uptick in feeling a little bit more critical. So you're definitely not alone there. The second question I want to ask everyone is, have you been feeling pressure to not gain weight over the past couple of months, or maybe you have gained weight and you're, having different emotions around that? Yeah, so we'll give everyone just another moment. And Sydney, I see you. You're not alone. Yeah. So it seems like around 82% of us have felt, this pressure to not gain the quarantine 15. So I think what this really shows us is, what this really shows us is that you're not alone, that we're all collectively feeling this, and that we're all in a moment of needing this support. So thank you guys for being here. And a huge thank you to our amazing mentors that are with me tonight. So honored and excited to have you all here. So I'd love to go around and have you all, just introduce yourselves, give us, who are you, what's your background? Alex, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex LaRosa. I am a plus size model and a blogger, and I am based in LA, from LA. And I've been in the, plus size fashion world for the last 10 years. And I've been really exploring my own body acceptance and my own sense of self-worth and self-love during that whole time. I'm really excited to be here. I think this is going to be a really good conversation. And so I'm really happy you are all joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. How about you, Tess?
I'm Tess Holliday. I am a model, author. I founded the body positive movement After Beauty Standards. Like Alex, I live in LA. I'm from Mississippi. I've been doing this for a little over 10 years. And I definitely leaned more towards more radical body love, body liberation. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here with all of you and to learn, because I really identify with, what everyone is talking about. It's, I don't have it all figured out, but, we can all learn and support each other.
Yeah, thank you. How about you, Tiffany?
So my name is Tiffany Ima, if you all do not know, and I teach women how to ditch body shame and feel at home in the body they have now. And my journey to now has been a long, winding one. I started out online as a style blogger, actually, and ended up in the body image space after about 9 years of trying to figure out exactly where I would fit. And the reason why I ended up in the body image space is because of my own struggles with eating disorders and disordered eating and over exercise. And I just wanted to be a voice to encourage, because I know that so many people are going through the exact same thing. So that is how I ended up in this space.
Thank you so much. Okay, last but not least, Anna.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here tonight. So I have been an eating disorder dietitian for the last 13 years. My life has been entirely based on helping humans to find peace with food and body. And newly, like over the last year and a little bit, I've become very cozy on Instagram. So I'm happy to have expanded the number of humans I connect to well beyond the humans that I sit in or used to sit in my office with, but now sit on Zoom with. And I'm just so happy to be having this conversation with everybody tonight.
Thank you, guys. think a perfect place to start is really to hear about your own journeys, and would love to know for each of you, what was your body image like growing up, and when was the lowest moment that you had in relationship to your body and your appearance?
I can start. So I grew up in a household with a lot of plus size women who were regularly on diets. I think that's not an uncommon experience. I grew up basically, always thinking that shrinking your body was the goal in day-to-day life. It's, not an easy thing to achieve. And I don't think anyone in my family ever had a healthy relationship with that or succeeded in changing their bodies the way that they wanted to. And so it was just this constant thing of disappointment that you weren't able to meet the goals that you set out for yourself, and then not even really analyzing how problematic some of the goals were. So I grew up in a very white space, in a very thin space, and I think being both fat and Black were negatively looked upon in my schooling. And so quite literally growing up and being in middle school or high school, I never fit in. I didn't really have anyone else who looked like me until I saw Oprah on TV. And I was like, okay, this is a Black woman. She's plus size sometimes, and sometimes she's talking about Weight Watchers. That's a whole nother thing. And it, I found representation when I was in high school, and I was like, okay, so here's a plus size woman that is successful, and that kind of gave me a little bit of hope that my body isn't going to hold me back or be this big thing in my life that was going to, be something that I had to focus on all the time. I could have another career and another focus and just be fat, and that's fine. That's just part of it. Then I would see Queen Latifah, and that was a big moment for me because she was not shaming her body constantly. And that was really huge. The main thing that I would say, I was at my worst place right before I had my biggest breakthrough. So I had an eating disorder at the end of high school, and I took 2 years off between high school and college. And in those 2 years between high school and college, it was the worst. I was at the worst place mentally with my body. I was the smallest I had ever been. And so that worked. It was the first time that I got attention from guys, and that was a big thing. And I remember someone broke up with me, and I was mortified, and I really launched into an even more destructive pattern in my eating disorder than I was before. I was bulimic, and then I ended up not eating at all after the breakup, and it was so shitty and so hard. And I randomly needed jeans, and I couldn't find clothes anywhere. All the stores that I was near didn't have my size. I didn't have a car at the time, so I looked online and I found torrid.com, and that is when I noticed all these plus size models, and they just were gorgeous, thriving, looked good in their clothes, and didn't seem to have any issue with it. Obviously, that's not how modeling works. There are a lot of models with very messed up body image, but I saw these plus size women in a Torrid ad, and I was like, I would like to do that. And it gave me hope that I could be confident in my body, look good, feel good, all that stuff. So I tried out, I sent in pictures to Torrid to become a model, and it took 6 months, and I booked my first job. And that was really the start of being introduced to the plus size community. Mm-hmm. And that was the start of seeing other plus size women online who weren't just who were plus size, who loved their bodies and weren't afraid to live this unlimited, amazing life in these fat bodies. And I was blown away. And I think that really is what changed the trajectory of my self-image. And that was 10 years ago. And it's been a process ever since. Nothing is linear. It's not everything was fixed when I got introduced to the plus size community, but I was able to have women who understood me, and I could share, like in that growth together. We could be together in our journeys, and that was really important, and that changed my life.
That's so powerful. I know we've talked about how representation literally changed the course of your life, that it really helped you step into your worth. So thank you. How about you, Tess?
I knew you were going to ask me next. Alex, I was like, her story was so beautiful. And I'm like, what am I going to say? I grew up in Mississippi. Everyone around me was plus size, fat. I mean, I choose the word fat because that's how I describe myself. And similarly to Alex, everyone in my family was always on a diet, except for my mom. My mom didn't really care. She never really made me feel bad about myself. It was actually my dad that would pressure me a lot and always say, he would say, you have such a pretty face, if you would just lose weight. And I remember like trying out for different, sporting, like I wanted to swim, right, and do soccer. And he told me, you're too fat to do that. Like, don't you think you need to lose weight first? And so there was always like discouragement growing up whenever I, excuse me, wanted to do something that I thought was going to bring me happiness. And so I learned from, unfortunately, around the age of 12, 13, when I hit puberty and my body started to change. And, I went from like a kid to like this plus size girl. And I never thought that there was anything wrong with my body. But then I noticed that not everyone, but a lot of people around me thought that there was something wrong with my body. And that was really hard to deal with. And my body was like sexualized really young as well because of how my body developed, which was really hard and brought on a lot of problems. And when I was 10, my mom almost died from a domestic violence incident. And I then started to have issues with disordered eating. So I was dealing with my body changing, not feeling support in my family, and using food to cope with what had happened to my mom. And that carried on throughout my life. When I started modeling, that similarly to Alex, I had always wanted to model. I wasn't sure if I would be able to. I didn't see anyone that looked like me, as far as you guys were talking both about representation. And, I've talked about it for the past 10 years that representation is literally what saved my life. And, I knew that there wasn't anyone that looked like me as, a 5'4", if I'm being generous, fat Caucasian woman, right? And how sad is that I didn't feel represented, what it would be like for, other communities and people of color. And then I realized that there was a larger issue at hand. So I'm really grateful for modeling to have brought me to the place where I'm at. But unfortunately, my disordered eating has always been a struggle. I'm actually currently dealing with it now. I'm not in like the best space, to be honest, with like my eating. And it's hard because I have a 15-year-old son who will be 15 soon. And he, I have to kind of correct his language a lot, where he'll be like, oh, I don't want to eat that. That's good or bad. And I would say, hey, growing up, I was told that like food was bad and it was labeled that way. But like, we just have to be more mindful about what we're eating and like why maybe we're eating it. And, so I'm grateful that I can pass that on to him. But my lowest point in my, I guess, life with my body image it was my childhood that I was speaking about until I went through my divorce. And actually I don't believe in coincidences. And today is a year ago that I left my unhealthy marriage. And that was causing a lot of my disordered eating. And so today's my year anniversary of choosing myself, and I get to be here with you guys. And yeah, it's a good thing when I'm feeling kind of down to know that like I've made it this far, you know? So yeah.
I hope you like see within the comments, like everyone is.
I haven't looked at the comments because I'll cry.
Everyone's congratulating you on like choosing yourself. It's so powerful, and like so appreciate your honesty, and also saying like, hey, this is something that I still struggle with, because healing isn't linear. And when I find a lot of times with myself, like depending on what else is going on in my life, things can kind of flare up, and it's a continuous journey of, back to self-love and self-acceptance. So thank you so much, Tess. How about you, Anna?
Sure. So I have always lived with thin privilege, and to be quite honest, I never really thought much about my body until the end of my freshman year in high school, when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And it certainly changed the way that I felt in my skin. I remember my entire, and I'm being elaborate when I'm saying my entire, but like a number of my peers wrote on this big card, like, thinking of you, get well, blah, blah, blah. Like the hot senior boys signed the card, and like all of these people who would otherwise not been in touch with me or like cared about me gave me all of this attention in relation to this disease that I was living with. So that was like, there was a really positive experience. And then I had 13 more flares in high school. And I didn't get any more cards. And so there was this really weird, and I hear about this from my clients all the time, like, I was sick this one time and I got a lot of support and attention, and then I stayed sick. And similar stories around body image kind of happen all the time. Like, I had this one acute moment of this being really poignant and hard. So then fast forward, I'm very much not in high school, thank God. But now I am, and I didn't do this in my introduction, I actually apologize that I didn't do this. I am a disabled dietitian. And so now I am a full-time walker user, and I use a wheelchair if I'm at the mall, when we were at the mall, or if I'm at the airport, which I don't know when I'll be at the airport the next time. And speaking to representation, I think, and I'm going to talk more about this, I think, towards the end when I'm kind of doing some wrap up things, but my process of actually coming into this disabled body, because it's happened progressively, and as the nature of having progressive MS is, this disability is like a moving target. And that means I wake up one day and I feel one way, and the next day I wake up and I feel a different way. But it has been quite a journey of moving from a place of really feeling kind of pretty like neutrally in my body and supporting these humans. Like I remember when I first started becoming disabled, I talked a lot of shit about my body in front of my clients at an eating disorder residential facility. And it took one of them saying to me, like, Anna, like, you know that when you're saying these things, like, it's affecting everyone here. And I honestly, because I'm talking about my limp, I was like, nobody's connecting with this. But it's just this, I'm not really making a lot of sense, but it's just been, gosh, it has been such a process. And it is interesting to go from being a person who humans like look at, and like when I was standing and moving, people looked at me and smiled at me and would try and make eye contact with me, and then put me in a wheelchair and no one wants to look. And it's like the whole I no longer kind of exist on the planet thing, which is really weird and does some things to your brain.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, people, it has to make you feel avoided and not enough and not seen and not worthy of attention, which just isn't true. Yeah.
All of this. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I can therapize all of it, but it still feels like what it feels
Yeah.
like.
Totally. I think, when you're in your healing journey, right? Like if you've been in it long enough, know the concepts and the theories, but it's another thing to like really internalize it and put into practice. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. Okay, Tiffany.
Yeah, it's going last it's interesting to hear everyone's stories, because the common thread I'm hearing is that there's a sense of marginalization that has caused each of us to have some form of disordered thinking with our bodies. And for me, when growing up, that it wasn't an issue for me growing up. It didn't happen for me until later in life, because as a kid, I was an athlete. I was super active. I was a skinny kid, and I did musicals, and I was just everywhere, and I never really thought about my body until a little bit later in life. The first time that I thought about it at all was when I was running track my junior year. My coach told me if I lost 10 pounds, I'd be faster, which aerodynamically is true for a sprinter, but that's the first time I ever thought that I should lose weight. And to be clear, I'm a straight size woman, just like Anna was saying. I have a level of thin privilege, and a lot of my disorder eating patterns stem from being in a Black body and the fear of being fat, because I know how fat, dark-skinned Black women are treated in our society. So a lot of my issues stems from like kind of a survival mode, where I know that as a dark-skinned Black woman, being thinner is going to allow me a certain level of privilege that I would not have otherwise. So my whole goal with my body was to force it to be as small as possible, because it's often associated with things like being more feminine, being more acceptable, more palatable in society. And I didn't, it's almost like I was trying to be thin to survive and to be desirable. So I know when I was in college was when my eating disorder really came into fruition, and I was engaging in eating disorder behavior, specifically bulimia. And it started out with just kind of like a binge purge with exercise. I would like eat, and then I would go exercise for a super long time. Because transitioning from high school to college, I went from being super active to not being as active, not working out, because exercise was a part of my everyday life in high school. In college, I just, I gained the freshman 15 just like everyone else. And even looking back now, I still was in a smaller body. I was still straight size. But as I gained weight, I got more and more afraid of gaining weight, because I was like, well, I don't want to be in this category, because people are going to assume this and this about me, and I don't want to be in that category. And I remember when I was in college, there was a specific moment where I had eaten, I ordered like, I literally ordered from 3 different places, and like had like mozzarella sticks and pizza and chicken and like cookies, and just like ordered a bunch of stuff. And I was in my apartment. I had eaten it all. My best friend called me like, oh, I'm about to come over. And I was like, no, you can't. Like, I'm busy. And it was because I was like binging and purging in my apartment. And that was the first time where I was just like, oh, this might actually affect my life in a way that I didn't think about. But at the same time, I kept justifying my behavior, because I'm like, oh, well, I need to be thin. Like, it wasn't a question for me. I was just like, I need to be thinner. Like, this is how I'm going to be more desirable. So, the straight size, I'm going to answer this question because it's pertaining to what I'm saying. So straight size is not plus size, not ultra thin, exactly. So like you're thinking of people in that like 8 to 12-ish range. And that's really relative too. But it means that you're not really thin and you are not considered plus size. You're kind of a mid-sized person. And that's, I worked myself down to being like a 00 at one point. And my disorder eating, I controlled that for probably about 4 to 5 years, where I just like would control my eating and my exercise to a point where I could stay that small. And my body did not want to be that small. It just did not. So my turning point was just realizing like I can't live like this. Like I can't be hungry all the time, and I can't just like not eat when I feel like I'm weighing more than what I should. So I began my journey of accepting who I was and understanding that I don't have to be super, super thin to be accepted and to be desirable. And also, it's not even about being desirable. It's about loving who I am and like choosing myself. Just like Tess was saying, like I chose myself. Like I prioritize my physical health and my mental health over being thin. So
I love that. Thank you. I want to, shift the conversation to today. And, women gathering with us here tonight, 90% are feeling more critical and curious. I know Tess touched upon this, but for the rest of you, have you guys also, sensed that your inner kind of critic is being a little bit louder during this time?
Yeah, 100% for me. I think for me, aside from like fat phobia and wanting to be small to as like a form of protection, my eating disorder also was me being able to feel like I was in control of something. Like I wanted to be thinner as a defense mechanism. And I also knew that like that was the one thing that I could do. Like I could like harm myself to achieve this goal. And so I think I personally have felt it come back during this time, because during COVID and during all the uncivil unrest and all that's going on, I feel like there's so much that I am not in control of. Mm-hmm. And I think I am really good at avoiding my feelings and just trying to like cope with whatever I can to not have to feel the feelings. I'm real good at that. And so my eating disorder tendencies have been like flaring like crazy, because I feel like I want to have control over something. Everyone is more hypercritical of their body because of not, being as active. Gyms are closed, or you can't leave your home. We're all Zooming. We have like a lot of people who aren't used to looking at themselves as often are having to look at themselves a lot more. Like everyone is talking about it. Like I remember entering college and everyone talking about the freshman 15, and it like puts you on hyper awareness, and you're like, okay, now I have to be scared about this, And I think that has been similar with quarantine, where it's like everyone's talking about quarantine 15. So I'm like, okay, I must be in control. And my go-to, especially when it has to do with body, is to want to control my eating and my binging and my purging. So it's definitely flared up for me. Also, my friends. And so having conversations with other people sometimes can be triggering, even if you want to support. That's something that I'm personally having a hard time with, wanting to support my friends who are having similar problems and not knowing how to support it without not letting it affect me. So that's also something that I am currently working on. 100%. I bought a scale. I haven't had a scale in my house or in my life for, I don't even know how long. I like bought a scale. I downloaded like a calorie counting thing, and then I like had to delete all that shit, and I was just like, wait, no, what am I doing? So yeah, like I think COVID and the lack of control and the lack of like understanding of all these feelings going on, I just want to be able to cope, and that's one way that is a harmful go-to for me.
No, I can completely relate to that. Mine was also a lot about control and almost, it sounds weird, but it's like because it's in your control, it's like at least you're moving forward in a weird way.
Like you're being productive. Like you're like, yeah.
I'm curious, Anna, like to Alex's point about, wanting to be supportive of your friends, even tonight, right? Like this is a conversation that is really triggering and you're having to be really vulnerable. Like, how do you make sure to create those healthy boundaries when this is such a heightened topic of conversation?
I'm talking about with my clients all the time. And I'm not speaking about my body image experience right now, but just thinking about wanting to take care of, to the extent that I can, and just protect everyone in this space. Social media is a really wonderful tool. I think it can be so helpful in connecting, and this is how this event happened, right, is because of social media. And also it is a garbage fire, right? So there are pictures that are edited images that have, and we have 2 models on this call, so we can talk about the number of times you guys need to take pictures before you get like the shot that is like, you were talking about this before we got on the call too. Like we had like random conversation about like how you curate pictures. Like, but the fact is, if like humble observers are just looking at these images and feeling like shit because we're seeing pictures of things that are happening on social media and feeling like we should be doing blah, 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 blah. And or if we are now stuck at home with people who are talking about diets in ways that we've been able to protect ourselves from, or our friends are talking about the quarantine 15 or the new diet that they're trying or the way that they're moving their body, whatever. I think that having boundaries is the best way to actually have long-standing relationships. And if we are not most protective of our own kind of sanctity and safety first, we're going to end up needing to pull ourselves out of a pit. And so some of this can be like, we just have like a conversation and say, like, I'm not talking about diets anymore. I'm not talking about my weight anymore. And if somebody's not honoring that, it's like reasserting a boundary, writing a letter, writing an email, like, and then like cutting a person out of your life. And that is like painful shit, but that is self-care. And that is how we're going to get through this long moment. And I think there are some highlights of the pandemic. And in this regard, I think being able to really assert healthy boundaries right now will serve all of us really well going forward.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, Alex L. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. I love her, but she says self-care is community care, and like reframing taking care of yourself actually allows you to have be full enough to be able to be there for other people. I would, I'm curious hearing, and it's, thank you for being so vulnerable and for being so open about your experiences right now, because I'm sure there's people here tonight that are surprised that this is actually something that you all still struggle with. A word that probably comes up all the time is confidence, and questions around how are you so confident? How do you gain confidence? It's a feeling that people always want to feel. And so I'd love to actually reframe the question and have you guys speak to what would you love women here tonight to know about confidence?
That it's not something that you just figure out overnight and then you're there and then you're confident forever. As I was listening to Anna and Alex, I'm going to answer the question, but I also want to agree that boundaries are super important, and I love cutting people out of my life if they don't respect my boundaries. And I think it's incredibly important because, it wears away at you, and then if you're like me, I'm an empath, and I'm making sure everyone else's cup is full and then my cup is empty, and then I'm wondering why I'm not my best self. And that relates back to confidence. It's I think that I know that there's this perception that once you have it figured out, that you're there, you're going to be on this high forever. And especially with social media, I think Anna was saying, you didn't put it in this words, but you were essentially saying it's a highlight reel, right? You're all seeing what you want, what we want you to see, not reality. You know, everyone thought that I had a perfect life and a perfect marriage, but then if you talk to people close to me, they would tell you that it was a shit show. So, you know, and my confidence was a roller coaster, and it still is. And being able to just accept that, hey, we're going to have good days, we're going to have bad days, we're going to have good, like, minutes, and it can shift from minute to minute, hour to hour. And like being able to love yourself enough and be aware enough to check in and say, hey, it's okay that you're feeling that way. This is temporary. Feeling the feeling, letting it release, letting it go, and not letting it hold you hostage. Because then, for me especially, I spiral and then I make it into something bigger. So yeah, I'm confident most of the time, but it depends on like when you ask me and like where I'm at, where, you know, if I'm able to access that part of me and like truly feel my best self.
No, I love that. Does anyone have anything else to build or?
Yeah. So just in thinking about social media and how it can really be something great and also something very negative, I think a lot of times people see us on social media and they forget that we are human beings with emotions and feelings and that we also struggle. And I think that's why people feel okay with the personal attacks on social media, because they're like, oh, they're not real people, they're just influencers. And you know, that is definitely not the case. You know, I think it takes a very unique individual to be able to take their experiences and share them vulnerably online and talk about them and just be in a public place. But I want to break down what confidence is supposed to be, because I think that people think about confidence as this thing to attain. So you're always like constantly like you're trying to work to obtain confidence, and you're trying to change certain things, like, oh, if I do this, then I can be more confident. If I look this way, I can be more confident. If I stand up straight, I can be more confident. And confidence is more about acceptance and saying, hey, this is who I am, and I am just existing. And that is how you really achieve confidence, is just accepting who you are, because it's not about loving yourself at every moment. That's just not realistic, because you are a human and you are going to have emotions. And you know, I get during my period, I get super hormonal and like angry and like feel like crap. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I'm just like a dramatic like teenager all of a sudden. And you have to understand that that is just a part of it. That's a part of who you are as an individual, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to be happy and smiling and like I'm confident all the time, because it's not like that.
Mm-hmm. I will actually piggyback on that really quickly and just say, like, I love forums like this, and this is one of the reasons that I love actually social media and my presence there. And I love my job, because when I'm doing my job and I'm in my office sitting in my chair and my clients are on the couch sitting across from me, my walker is sitting beside me, but I'm not moving. So I like using my brain, like the part of me and like the part that connects, the part of me that is soul based. I feel really confident about that part of me. The physical part of me is a part that is, as I said, like ever changing. And so I think that if we are attaching all of our confidence to, you know, one part of ourselves, we are missing out on the whole point. So it doesn't actually matter. Like, I refer to bodies as earth suits all the time. It doesn't matter that I don't love every part of my earth suit or the fact that it's not functional all the time.
I'm sorry, that took me out. I know you're being serious, but I just pictured it.
I just Tess Holliday. I'm really happy about this. But like these bodies, these carrying cases, this is not the point of us. And so I think, like confidence is a thing that we might all strive for in any one moment. But I really want to get curious about like so if confidence is a necessity, I think we're all probably screwed at one time or another. So what would it be like to actually be more self-compassionate instead of holding up confidence as this mark of demarcation that says like, I made it. And again, I really appreciate this space because I do talk about my MS and I do talk about some of the ugly parts of this disease, but I will say like the day-to-day unpleasantries, I don't talk about. I'm like, I get to like stay behind the curtain and pretend that like, sometimes it's not pretending, but like that like everything's really good and happy Monday.
I'm curious to hear, like, it sounds like confidence isn't this destination point that you arrive to, and then it's like a light switch and it's there. It's really something that just like your self-love and self-acceptance journeys, it's something that's a continuous process. And so for each of you, when you're having a moment where you just feel shitty or you're not feeling, like you look good or you just aren't feeling yourself, what are either some tools and resources that are super helpful? What are kind of things that you do to help get yourself and really shift that perception and shift that focus?
I can answer this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I'm having a body, like just feeling shit in my body kind of day, my first thing that I do is like, why am I feeling shit in my body? Who told me my body has to look a certain way? And then I remember diet culture. And then I'm like, all right, there's like a $40 billion industry that wants me to like feel shit about my body. Forget them, they're not important. So like, I think learning about diet culture changed the game for me. And knowing that quite literally, there are hundreds, probably thousands of companies that are designed on women's, most of the time, hating their bodies. And that is a message that gets just sold to us constantly since we were born, like nonstop. And every time that I feel like shit in my body, I can pretty much always relate it back to diet culture. And it's just someone trying to make $1 off of my insecurities. And they're not going to get my money. And like that like angle of looking at it has helped me so much over the last few years, because I know that these thoughts that are in my head have been fed to me. And the next thought that comes to my head gets to be my actual thought and I get to control it. And so it's like, if I'm like, my body looks fat and I feel like that's a bad thing. And like, oh, no one's gonna like, what's the real problem? No one's gonna make me feel desirable, or like, oh, like people are gonna think I'm worthless. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's not true. That's actually just someone wanting me to buy their diet pill or their, I don't know, fucking whatever it is, shapewear or whatever. That has been the biggest thing for me, and it is my go-to because it snaps me out the quickest. I'm just like, like fuck those people trying to make money off me. It's not worth it. Yeah.
Totally agree. I feel the exact same way. Like once I had like awareness of like all the reasons why I was feeling so bad about my body and so bad about what my body could be if I just let it go, I think about like, okay, well, why do I feel like this? But what's the actual research? Okay, 95% of diets fail.
Yeah.
And it's not the person's fault. Okay, why is that? It's because people have a set point body weight that they're supposed to be in, and that's why it's so hard for people to get underneath that. Okay, so if those things are true, then why do I feel bad just because I can't fit my size 4 anymore, or my size 2, or my size 0? And you kind of like have all these things that are subliminally in your mind that you just have to stop and break down. And as far as like what I do if I'm feeling bad, like I ask those questions, I journal, I meditate. Sometimes I'm just like, shit, I feel like crap today. I'm going to bed. Like, and that's fine too. Like sometimes you just have to be like, all right, new day tomorrow. Let's just start over.
It's all over.
I agree both with Alex and Tiffany. When you realize that when you grow up in a body that is marginalized, you quickly learn that there are a lot of reasons why you think and feel the way that you do. If it's not like all positive and rainbows and whatever, which is not real life anyway, but there's constantly things that you saying like, yeah, you're good, but you could be better. And, you're doing okay, but you could try harder. So yeah, I mean, like they both said, I have, days where I completely surrender. And if I'm really feeling crappy, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I will order pizza. I will watch probably something stupid like The Office or something that I don't really have to think about that makes me happy. And I'll just feel my feelings. I'll go outside. I'm grateful that we live in LA, so I'll take a drive down, by the beach. I can't go to the beach, but I'll like drive by the water. Kind of trying to remove myself from the situation sometimes helps, but I mean, I would be lying if I said that I would like play with my kids and do all of that. It's usually, for me, I just let myself feel it. And especially like Tiffany said earlier around my period, which is now, I'm dealing with that now. I'm like, oh, I feel like a troll and all of this stuff. And then I have to remind myself like, it's not real. That's not real life, but it's okay to feel that way. And yeah, I mean, just feel it.
Yeah. I'm curious, Anna, for your clients and patients, like, do you have frameworks or practices that you share with them when they're, in one of these kind of negative, pervasive thought loops?
So I think, fortunately, I work with a lot of really wonderful therapists. And so long story short, thought stopping, I think, is a really important thing to be able to practice the skill of being able to recognize an unhelpful thought, to get curious about it. Speaking to what Tiffany and Alex, you were talking about, like naming diet culture, and you said $40 billion, it's like 78. And I saw Christy Harrison publish something, some market research, something that was published that said by 2024, diet culture, the influence of diet culture is projected to be something like $240 billion in the United States by 2024. I don't know how that number was like ascertained, but that's terrifying. And the point is, diet culture is here to tell all of us that we have to fix our shit, and like there's a thing that you can do to make that happen. And there's this ever growing list of things for people to do and try, just to help them, feel better, find like the sparkly new life. And I think if we are able to really take pause, I think Christy Harrison's book, Anti-Diet, has been really, really helpful for a lot of my clients, to be able to really kind of pull out of that. And like, fortunately, there are lots of resources, but really kind of practicing thought stopping, recognizing kind of the input, like where the input is coming from, and making a decision about whether or not you want to like sit in the shit with that feeling, which I think there actually is quite a lot of value in, or you want to actually, push back and change the theme.
Thank you. It's super helpful. And we'll make sure, I know there's like a ton of amazing resources within the chat box and that have been said, so we'll make sure to compile those and send it out in an email. So I just have 2 more questions for our amazing mentors. So I want to welcome the community to start thinking of any questions that you have. Go ahead and start submitting them into the Q&A function so that we can make sure to answer as many of those as possible. One topic that I really want to touch upon is representation. It's come up a lot. I know that Tiffany, you mentioned that there is this common thread amongst everyone of feeling marginalized in some way. And I know, Alex, you said it, directly changed the course of your life as well for you, Tess, as well. And while society, we have made a lot of progress, diversity can't be checking a box. And curious from your perspectives of how do we really start to move towards a truly more inclusive society and culture?
Yeah, I think diversity has been the word for so long. And, like you just said, you can't just check a box or have, one of each, whatever that means. Like you can't have some kind of token representation if there's not true inclusivity and equality on the other side of the brand. So when we're talking about representation, it's like media, right? So I think whoever is behind the scenes, like when you look at who has real power, not just who is becoming the face of something, like who are the CEOs, who are the people on the marketing teams, who is having real, honest, long-term power to develop structures within companies, within social groups, whatever, to make actually to build equality, not just make people feel seen. Because being seen is nice and that is important and that is life-changing, but being heard and cared for and treated as human, treated as equal is how we're going to fight oppression. And that's how we are going to have people who aren't marginalized. And to have a world where no one is actually marginalized is just so far away, but so amazing and so exciting to think about. It's very far. But I think the next step is, when you talk about inclusivity, it is inclusive in every aspect of the world. Right now I'm thinking of media, so that's kind of just like the realm I think of everything through.
Yeah.
But when people have equal power and equal say in what is going on and on what is being represented and what structural forms we're making, that is when I feel like we'll see people not be oppressed and not be marginalized. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know.
I know, I
have
agree.
an answer to that.
Go ahead. Tiffany, you go ahead.
So, and I think I have a somewhat unpopular opinion on this, because I think the way that most people pursue diversity is by saying, okay, well, let's get a fat person, let's get a black person, let's get a light-skinned person. And then they just like make this like little group. And it is then you put it in a place where people are then having this comparison. So for me, I don't think the goal should necessarily be diversity and inclusivity for any particular company, but we need to see more companies that do like, oh, I specialize in plus size clothing. This platform is for dark-skinned Black women. This is a safe space for this group of people, and it needs to be normalized that people can have spaces like that they go to. Because realistically speaking, when a lot of people are screaming at companies to say, you need to make more sizes, not every company can expand their sizes in a way that is monetarily feasible for them, and they also don't have the mindset to get there yet. So it's more like, hey, let's fund a company that makes sizes 1x to 8x. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to create that diversity by making exclusive spaces for people who are marginalized. And that's my opinion on it.
Is it like instead of instead of pulling up your chair to someone's table, you want to just build a whole new table? Like you want to have a whole new space where it, from the get-go, the intention was.
Exactly. And I think, the reason why I have that view is I think dark-skinned Black women have been doing this anyway. Like you can find spaces online that are specifically for us. And it's something that you learn over time. It's like, I'm not begging for a seat to anybody's table. When I see that someone doesn't want me there, I'm out. Like, I'm not begging you to sit down. I'm not begging you to give me the food. I'm not begging you to let me in the building. I am bouncing, and that's the end of the story. So, and I think, you know, it's important to recognize that too. As an influencer, I'll have brands reach out and they're like, all of a sudden they know who I am and they're like, oh, we're trying to increase diversity, but we don't have any money to pay you. Oh, can you consult with our marketing director about how to be more diverse? And then you're creating another way for a marginalized group to be exploited for their labor. And I'm trying to get paid, like, I deserve to get paid for my work. So I think, you know, creating the spaces for specific people is necessary. And I tell people that all the time with my work when they don't agree with what I say. I'm like, my content is for people who struggle with disorder eating disorders, and they struggle with their bodies. I don't care about you fitness people that come to my page and say, hey, like, this is, you know, the BMI and blah, blah, blah. I don't care about any of those things because this content isn't for you. And it's important to have that kind of space, because then you will bring the people who need it together, and they will see representation better. Because if you think about like a company that I don't know, that says like, oh, we're diverse, but you mostly see thin white people, and then you'll see people who are portraying a Eurocentric aesthetic, and then you'll see maybe like 2 fat people. And it's like, this isn't diverse. This is just you trying to make it diverse, and it's not the same thing. So I'm very passionate about that.
I agree with, well, I just feel like I answer every question by saying I agree with everybody, but it's true. I think that, you know, like Alex said, and like Tiffany said, it's creating a whole new system. You know, it's, I've said this for years, putting your money where your mouth is, that, you know, and supporting the brands and the people that are truly diverse, that do give a shit about the community. Because, you know, at the end of the day, if designers or companies or whatever aren't making something that I want, there are people who are, that are passionate about it, and they don't need to be a big, huge company, because they're just as valid what they're doing with, you know, at the size that they're at, operating how they are, and they actually give a shit. And that's who I want to give my money to. And like Alex said, true diversity is, you know, it's in the boardroom. It's who's making the decisions. It's, you know, who's making the decisions. It's not what you're seeing, because there's a ton of other people that have to say yes and no before you're seeing a final product get out. And then I could talk about that all day long, because then you're like, wow, how many people had to say yes to that shit? So, you know, that they're presenting to us and saying like, here, this is good enough. And you're like, nah, that's not even close to good enough. So, yeah, I just think supporting the people and the brands and designers and artists and creators that genuinely care, and that, you know, and as a Caucasian creator, I don't like to use that word, but essentially that's what I am, creating a different socioeconomic kind of playing field, to where the money that I am bringing in is going back to people that are of color, that have been, that haven't had the same opportunities, because for a lot of the reasons that Tiffany was mentioning. And so, you know, it's not even like leveling the playing field. It's just making sure that you are truly supporting people that have not always been able to have the same opportunities because of simply how they were born. So, I mean, I think that plays into diversity too. I'm probably not saying it the best, but, you know, I just think that there's so much that needs to be considered when you're truly trying to be diverse.
Yeah, thank you guys. I feel like I could continue this conversation for hours. There's like so much to unpack in this space, and you guys you're incredible. So thank you so much for your time. I want to make sure that we have a bunch of Q&A questions, so I want to try to get through as many as possible. And feel free to take a look at yourself at the questions. So when you guys, what are some ways you catch yourself heading down dangerous disordered eating paths, and how are you able to catch yourself?
I think for me, like, it starts in my head first. I think my language changes in my thoughts. So like I personally do a lot of work on changing my language, right? So I don't want to consider foods good or bad. I don't want to think, I don't know, I'm trying to think of other examples. Good or bad, let's use that one. When I start not challenging that, when I'm like, oh, that's bad, and I make that decision based off of food being bad, that's a red flag, and I don't usually catch it in the moment. Like, it will be like 2 days later, I was like, did I just like not eat something that I wanted to eat because I thought I was gonna, like, because I felt guilty that I was gonna become fatter or something? Like, it takes me days, honestly, to catch myself. I'll go in like little phases where I am just buying into diet culture, like, really a lot. It's not immediate, but once I catch it, I'm active. That's like the one thing I say, like, the moment I like recognize some of those harmful thoughts coming back, I get real active in going to my go-tos of, okay, fuck diet culture, this is why. Okay, here are the people that I know I can go on the internet and I can hear a positive message that's gonna make me feel better, and I have to be proactive in those moments.
Another question we got is around accepting that a curvier figure was tied to sexualization of women. Tess, this might be a good one for you. How do we avoid fat acceptance as a function of male desire?
It's hard. I just talked about this yesterday, because every time I, share an image that is, perceived as sexy, I always have, a lot of people say, well, so I either get fetishized or people are telling me how disgusting I am, and there's like a little baby, middle area, but it's usually one extreme or the other. And, for me, for so long, because I've been fat my entire life, I settled for relationships that weren't fulfilling for me, both emotionally, mentally, and physically. It was always about my partners who were predominantly male at the time and like their happiness, because I felt like I wasn't deserving or able to enjoy myself and my body and these experiences because I was fat, right? And I wanted the attention from predominantly men at that time. And then I realized, wait, like, I actually don't. I'm doing this. I'm part of why I started taking photos in my underwear and putting them online, it feels like a million years ago, was because I didn't see other people doing that. There weren't many, fat bodies at that time, putting themselves out there. And men automatically assume that the world is for them and that this is for them. And you realize, wait, this is for me. This is, like Tiffany was saying earlier, and Alex, this is building a whole new thing. This is for people that didn't feel represented and didn't feel like they could belong. And so for me, it's not necessarily like wanting people to think that I'm sexy. I would be lying if I said that wasn't nice. But it's, for me, the intention of why I'm doing it why I'm putting this out there, what I want the impact I want it to have. And yeah, it's not, I just realized my computer's dying. Can I have my charger? It's not, so I'm like, oh, I have a minute left before it dies. What do I say? That's why. But for me, it was, yeah, just realizing that that's not what I wanted. And it's tough. So I am very vocal. Tiffany said something earlier that I really resonated with, where she said, this content is for people that are dealing with X, Y, Z. And for me, when people come on my page and say, no one wants to see that, or I don't want to see that, I'm like, this isn't for you. This is for people that didn't have the representation. It's going to die in a minute. It's great. Anyways, I'll, just in case it cuts me off, I'm so prepared over here. Great. The cord's not long enough. I'm crying. Okay, sorry. We're getting
The dog, love it.
I'm scooting. Okay. I don't know if I answered that well, but I tried.
No, thank you. No, you did answer it very well, so thank you so much. A few questions we've gotten are around racism.
I'm sorry, guys. This is such a bad time for this to be. I'm going to move myself this way while you guys answer. Okay.
A few questions we've gotten are around racism and fat phobia and the, racism and body positivity. So Alex and Tiffany, if that's something you feel comfortable talking about, would love to hear your perspective.
You want to go first?
Oh, I forgot I was muted. I was like, yeah. The craziest thing is that I did not realize how much racism played into my body image, because there's so many pieces. So specifically, the biggest thing that I've experienced is being that strong Black woman that don't need a man. And that's what people like assume about me, especially since I'm opinionated. So people will make the assumption that I don't need help, and also put me in this place where I'm like, they see me as one of the guys, like a masculine person, even before ever speaking to me. Like, this happens to me all the time, even just in public. And I can tell the way that, especially men, the way that men treat me versus how they treat other women. And that's something that I noticed and like subconsciously placed in my mind. And I was like, okay, well, I definitely I want to be seen as more feminine, because I identify as a feminine woman. And it hurt me that I was being seen as basically a man. And so for me, I was trying to alter, through exercise and dieting, my body to fit into this aesthetic so that I would be viewed differently. And why does it always go back to the male gaze? It's like this thing, because it's what we're taught, especially, black women are sexualized very young. I can remember being yelled at by grown men when I'm like 10, 11 years old. And I'm like, you can see that I'm not an adult. Like, looking back, I'm like, I probably was a little bit more developed, but like, I'm clearly a child. And it was it's a huge problem in the Black community. And I even saw, it was a video of someone, they were teaching their daughter, they were talking to their daughter, it was like a 3-year-old, and he's like, yeah, I don't talk to my daughter like a child, because she's a woman. And I was like, she's 3, she's not a woman, she's a 3-year-old. And that's like a common thing that happens with Black women, is that they're sexualized very young, and then our bodies are viewed as only sexual objects. And the marginalization, it happens on a scale in the Black community. And like, being dark skinned, like, I was, when men would talk about me, it's even like in middle school, when boys would talk about me versus like my light skinned counterparts, it would be like, oh yeah, well, she's got a nice butt, but she's prettier. And that is something that like I like, and it's called colorism. You guys should look it up later because I can't even get into that. We don't have time. But it's something that really played into my eating disorders because I was trying to compensate by being as thin as possible. So that was a major driver for me and trying to make my body fit a specific aesthetic.
Yeah. So I think when we think of stereotypes that Black women typically have to deal with, there's the mammy character, and then there's the over-sexualized, I don't know, just over-sexualized. For me, I grew up in a really white space, in a white town, white family, was not around the Black community until I was in college. And for me, I was always stereotyped as the mammy character. I was responsible for taking care of people. And the bigger your body is, the more that is like put on you. And as a fat Black woman, I was considered to be the person who was going to take care of you, was going to be responsible, was never considered sexy until all of a sudden I entered into this whole different world where it's way more diverse. And I literally learned about colorism for the first time. That was cute. Having to like realize, oh, I have privilege, and as a light-skinned girl and woman, I don't know why I said girl, as a light-skinned woman, and having to deal with that. And I entered into this space where all of a sudden I was overly sexualized, where I really wasn't until like it was just night and day a switch. And you know, there is this defense mechanism. Like you want to become smaller because the smaller you are, the less likely you're going to be sexualized, the less likely you're going to be considered a mammy character, the bigger you are, the more of a threat you are. So the harder they come at you with these stereotypes. And that has been my experience. And I feel like I've definitely felt that when I was in peak eating disorder and I was the smallest, it was like the most invisible that I could be. And that was actually great. Like I was not as sexualized anymore. I was not made to be the caretaker. I wasn't the angry Black woman for just having an opinion or speaking out. Like I could be more me the thinner I was. I could just be Alex. And that 100% comes with my privilege of being light-skinned, because my proximity to whiteness, with white supremacy in this world, my proximity to whiteness allowed me to, become more invisible like white people get to be all the time. You don't have to think about your race all the time like we do. And it's like, it is very frustrating to be like, I don't know how to say this. Like in my industry, I know that I have privilege because I am light. I know that I will be the token Black girl before a dark-skinned woman will be the token Black girl every time. And it is always a constant struggle for me to know that I'm representing for plus size women and want to be there and take up space, and also know that, sorry, my fiance just walked outside and completely just threw me off. Hello. He's like, hi babe. It has always been part of my journey. In the last 10 years, the more I have learned, the more I am willing to step back. Because as there's been more access for Black women in the plus size space, most opportunities will come to me before it'll come to a dark skinned woman. And it's like, I have learned step up, step back. So like, I step back to make room for the people who aren't getting these opportunities as quickly. And that has been part of my journey, and it's been awesome. Like it's been really educational and cool for me. And so, yeah, when we're talking about body, it's like racism is so intersected. It is never separate. Like it never feels separate. Just like we talk about, the male gaze and sexism, it's always there. It's always incorporated. So is racism. It's just another thing on the table that you have to deal with. Yeah, that's my answer.
So much for sharing that with all of us. This has been such a profound evening, and I know that I'm walking away with so much encouragement and also just so many resources and to kind of help support me in my own journey. So for the last question, it's actually going to be something that we do as a community all together. And a big value at ours at MoxxieMade is courage, because I believe fearlessness doesn't exist. You're always going to have fear, self-doubt, limiting beliefs, but really pushing beyond that with a sense of courage is what allows us to stand tall in our worth, what allows us to really be the woman that we want to be. And so I'd love all of the mentors here tonight, everyone that is joining us virtually, to please close your eyes. And I'd like for everyone here to think of a moment in the past couple of months that you did something that was really expansive for you. It doesn't matter if it is perceived to be big or small, as long as it was meaningful to you. It's a moment that you feel proud of, where you really flexed your courage muscles and took a step in the right direction towards the woman that you want to be. And I'd love everyone to think of that moment, hold it, and then open your eyes. And so what I'm going to ask the community together, in the chat box, and then also our mentors here, just to speak about that moment, because all women have worth and value. All women are meant to be celebrated, and that's what this is symbolic of. And also, courage has ripple effects. So when you do something that's expansive for you, you show others that they have that possibility in them. So if the community members could write your courageous moment, and then all of our mentors, feel free to say yours as well.
Yeah, I can start. Honestly, the courageous moment that I've done in the last month is saying yes to this opportunity. Yeah. I've done some other things. I tried meditation for the first time. That was very scary for me because of a lot of religious bullshit that's going on in my head right now. So anything with spirituality is very intense to me. But saying yes to this was really scary. I've said no to pretty much any opportunity to speak. I've said no to any opportunity put myself out there. I was a very quiet kid. I have a hard time sharing my opinions unless it's written down on a social media caption. I can do that all day. But in video or in public speaking, it really scares me. And so I would say this has been the biggest challenge for sure.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
I love this question. And I will say that I think something that has been really important and will be other ways that I continue to kind of do this as I move through life as a disabled person is just asking for new and different help for things that I really never thought that I would have to ask for help with. I will say, so I just got this shirt and I had my mom come over to my house to actually button it for me because I can't feel my fingertips in this moment in time. And I just shared that with everyone on this call. That was brave too. So just asking for help.
Mm-hmm. So good.
I love that.
Thanks for sharing.
For me, it was actually deciding to go all in with the journey that I'm on now to helping other women, because at the end of March, I went through a breakup in February, and from March to April, I wasn't sure that I was even going to go on Instagram. And my decision was either delete Instagram or go all in. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in. And in April, I was I'm posting every day. I always tell people this because people think I have had a large following for a long time. Beginning of April, I had 12.5 thousand followers, and I've had that same following for a year and a half. And, I went all in and I grew very quickly because I was so focused on the type of content that I wanted to create and who I wanted to talk to. So that was a brave moment for me because I was scared that I would fail and that I would not be able to keep up. So it was good. It was good that I did it.
I'm really glad you did.
Me too.
You guys all had the best answers, and thanks for sharing, because I'm terrified to say mine, but mine was, Mine has been the decision to consider dating again. I decided to put myself out there, and I haven't been to a restaurant in months, and I decided that I was going to go to a restaurant on a first date with a really great person, and they stood me up on Saturday. And I initially, obviously, I was like really hurt, and then they reached out. I am really good at, especially because of all my previous trauma with my previous relationship and all that, I'm really great at being able to tell when someone is being honest with me. And I could tell that the person was being honest, but then it shifted into me trying to find compassion, which I've not always been the best at, because I grew up with so much trauma that my immediate reaction, both online and real life, has always been to be defensive and like angry and not as understanding. And so I am so I guess my answer is dating again, but also trying to have compassion towards people during this time that things are all so hard on all of us, and trying to make space for compassion within myself, but also with others.
That's so powerful. Thank you, guys. And I do want to read a few from the amazing women that are here with us. Cassandra started as a foster care case manager, and she didn't know if she was going to be able to help anyone in that position. She didn't know if she felt smart enough, but she is, and you're helping so many people, so thank you. Brianna donated skinny clothes that she's been storing. Yeah, get rid of it. Led my first racial equality training, setting boundaries. Went out to eat twice in the same day, which is big, not having a panic attack. Writing poetry, donating plasma for COVID patients. That's huge. Quitting your job to start your own company. Kudos, that takes so much bravery.
Awesome.
Working all day, which was so liberating. You guys, these are amazing. Started an internship, spoke on her own panel a few weeks ago, vocalized a job promotion even during the pandemic. It's incredible to advocate. You all should be so proud, and this is just such a beautiful way to end the evening. So thank you all for being here tonight, for holding this space. I feel so grateful. We will be sending over all of the resources that were discussed and making sure to send out all of the mentors' accounts so that you guys can follow them. And there'll be a survey that pops up. I hope that you guys are willing to take it so I can make this the most impactful experience for you all. But thank you guys so much for tonight. It was really special.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.